Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Beer and Skittles Depths of Pop Culture podcast. This week, we are going to be talking about Percy Jackson. As most of you probably know, Percy Jackson was a very popular book series that had gotten adaptations before in the past. However,
Not good ones.
not good ones. That is very true. Very disappointing. My childhood was ruined after those. But we
Entire
are
childhood just
the
ruined.
entire childhood was ruined after those.
I would argue that the live action Avatar: The Last Airbender ruined my childhood, but
That one's worse. See, there's always an upside for
yep,
every bad adaptation of your childhood. There's a
it
worse
could
one.
be worse.
Unless your favorite is Avatar, because I don't know if there is something worse than that, but I'm sure we'll
Worst
probably
thing you
think
could
of
wish
one.
upon somebody. I hope your favorite book or cartoon gets adapted into live action and is god awful. Like that's horrible.
Awful. Like, because you get so excited. You get so
Yeah,
excited beforehand, and you're just like, what was this?
yeah. What happened?
But despite the bad adaptation for Percy Jackson in the past, now that it is owned by Disney, they are doing their own adaptation for Percy Jackson, and they just dropped the trailer at D23. We have been keeping up with those rumors for a while. They had casting rumors, etc. But now they actually have an official trailer. And God, am I more excited for this than the first adaptation?
It looks so good, and like Rick is part of the writing team to help bring this to life. And not to say that you always should have the original author a part of the team when you're doing an adaptation, but
But it
with
definitely
the
helps.
it
It
definitely I
definitely
think helps,
helps.
especially after seeing this and it's just a teaser, it's not even a full trailer, but I can't wait.
Yeah, but so far, again, they're taking all the right steps. So even though we don't have much to go off of, my excitement is still there. Percy Jackson was probably my favorite book series as a kid. And I do think it holds up still. Like I feel like I could definitely reread it as an adult and still enjoy it. And
That's the only book series you read as a kid.
whoa, I read Twilight. Anyway,
I didn't know you were going to say that. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
well, I can't read. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I wasn't a strong reader. That's why they made comic books.
Team
They gave me
Edward or Team Jacob? From the
bro.
books. From the books, not the movie.
Doesn't matter. Edward.
It does matter.
Edward.
It does matter
That
because if
was
you're
her
basing
true
it off,
love.
ah,
It doesn't matter.
it
Jacob
does
is
matter.
just a hoe. That's all.
First of all, you're talking about Taylor Lautner right now.
He was
Okay.
a hoe for show.
Anyways, I am equally as excited for this movie. Not movie, TV series. And I think that it being a series is going to like be so beneficial. There's so much story there.
Yeah, so much because you have to cover these kids' stories, which there's what was there, 7 books originally,
Think so.
with the 3 on the extension as well, if they ever get that far into it when they bring in the Roman gods and all that. But
Yep.
so you have to tell these kids' stories from all of these books while still making sure that you bring in all of the mythology that makes sense, like all the things you have to know because they're the kids of gods that are from actual mythos. So you have to put in a lot of their information and get a lot of that accuracy in there as well. So being a TV show is much better for them because you do not have to rush through that pacing. You can really take your time, adapt these characters. And again, they're kids too. So you see a lot of growth, especially when you have kids in a story. You get, especially for that long of a time. So you really want to make sure that that pacing is right and you're not just jumping from the one thing to the next, to the next, and to the next.
Yeah, I think we will, if the show does go on for a long time, getting to see these kids grow up and, throughout the course of all of these book stories to the finale, and beyond, like you said, if we get the sequel series, being adapted, or any of the other series that Rick has written. You know, he has the series that takes place with Egyptian mythology and the other series that has Norse mythology, and those series are all interconnected. So the possibilities are really limitless, um, for where everything goes and how long they continue to tell stories within this world.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of potential for it to go for a long time. Um, One, again, there's so much source material to go off of. I mean, there's almost as much for this as there was Harry Potter, and you see how that turned out. Not saying that it is going to
Yeah,
be the next Harry Potter, but if I could name a better book series to take on or that mantle for Harry Potter and just kind of have an adaptive world like that and get so big. Um, Another thing is that one, while doing a TV show, it's much easier and much faster to pump out a TV show than a movie. You can get a season
yeah,
every year, but you're gonna get a movie at best every 2 years. And again, you have a young cast. You have to keep their ages in mind, and that is also where they went right. These kids are
yeah.
young. It's not like they're 18, looking like he was already going through puberty and all this stuff. It just they're
And
young.
I think Walker's a great cast as well. I mean, we talked about it in one of our earlier episodes for the podcast. He was great in the Adam Project. So I think he's going to be fantastic. And just seeing him in this little teaser, I'm like, yeah, that's Percy.
Yeah, no, I mean, Walker Scobell comes again because I haven't seen him until Adam Project, and just from that role alone, I think he's a phenomenal child actor, and I think he's going to be a name that we're going to watch out for a long time. Um, but he brings so much energy onto the screen, and you see how much charisma he brings to his characters and such. And I think playing one of these demigods that we get from the Percy Jackson series, where they're all, described to have ADHD and all the dyslexia and all that stuff, and the character that Percy is in himself having some kind of quick wit to him and everything, I think it would I think he's a great cast. I think he's a great cast for Percy. And honestly, I hope I see that kid in more things.
Yeah.
Because pulls off a young Ryan Reynolds? You can't do that.
It's so good. It's so good. Um, I'm really excited to see, you know, how much of the story too, how much of the first book are we really getting in this first season? I'm not sure if they've announced how many episodes the first season is going to be. Um, I don't know if it's going to be one book per season or how they're going to end up breaking that up.
I mean, I
But
would I would imagine so. Uh, just because thinking about those books, I mean, well, one, Disney has a tendency to do short seasons, but it seems they're breaking out of it. I mean, you see they're breaking out of it. Daredevil, which we might have talked about already.
18 episodes, yeah.
Yeah, 18 episodes, which is a step in the right direction for them.
Well,
Obviously, this
and
is an
even Andor is
MCU,
going to be
but
12 in
yeah,
its first
so
season.
longer seasons. There's a lot that you could pack in with those types of longer seasons. So I think there's not really a point that I could think of in the first book other than the ending that you'd be like, yeah, we could stop here. Like we could
Yeah.
stop here. This could be our finale. I don't see that because it's a bunch of trials and tribulations that lead to the greater goal. And
Yeah.
I think you could pack that book into about 12 episodes minimum.
I think it's possible. I think they can do that in one season. I really hope the CGI is good. Um, Especially once they start using their abilities and seeing some of the creatures from mythology and everything that he fights. And I don't know what the budget's going to be, but I'm hoping it's decent enough that it doesn't look bad.
I
You
mean,
know,
it's Disney. They never have a bad budget for whatever they're doing. They're like the biggest
true,
production company, but it's just
true.
yeah, but they are inconsistent. I mean, we were just talking on one of our TikToks how the CGI for Little Mermaid looks amazing. However, all the criticisms for the MCU have been that the CGI has not been looking great.
I mean,
Um,
look at She-Hulk. I like the show so far, but something is off with the CGI on that character, and it has a humongous budget. It shouldn't look off.
yeah. So I mean, we don't know. No, nevertheless, I'm still excited about it. It just, again, a lot of avenues that they could go down. I think there's potential to stick to the script. Like you said, Rick is going to be on this project, so hopefully he keeps them along the path that the books went. And even if they do go into certain directions that are different, I mean, having the author being on the project usually means that it's probably going to be acceptable, whatever avenue they pick, because this might be something like, oh, I really, because nobody loves their finished product. I mean, I think we both
Everyone's
know as,
critical. Yeah.
yeah, like, so there's, you always look back and be like, I wish I did this.
What would I
So
have done differently?
yeah, exactly. So maybe we'll get some of that from him. Where who knows? Maybe we'll go through the show and be like, "Oh, I like this more," because again, the author's there and he gets to make the changes, or at least hopefully Disney gives him as much freedom to make whatever changes he would like to, um, to where he can even try to improve upon the great thing that he's already made.
Yeah. I have one wish for this show. And as far as I know, it's a character that hasn't been cast yet. But I would love for them to cast Logan Lerman as Poseidon.
I think it'd work. I think it'd be a great callback as well.
It would be.
I mean, not that I really cared about him in the first place, because of the way he ruined my childhood. But
He didn't ruin your
that
childhood. It wasn't his fault.
he
He
was
was
part of
great.
it. He was part of it though.
Great.
He was part of it.
Great.
Listen,
He's a lot older now.
listen. Yeah, but like, I mean, dude, not every Nazi started the Holocaust, but they were all a part of it. He was a part. He was a part of it. I'm still gonna blame him
I'm not even gonna make a counter argument for that.
because it was too good. There is no counter argument. He knew what he was doing.
I'm just gonna quickly move on to something.
So the real question is going to be, what are the hopes and what are the depths that we think they can go with this? Because we mentioned this before. Because like I said, there's been the rumors for Percy going on for a long time now, and this show coming out. But how far are they going to take it? Because I know we both talked about how we've also loved the Roman books that came out, which are very closely adapted because they are intertwined. Um, Not like the Egyptian and the Viking one. Like these ones are, all the characters are together. So, but it's a long way. But there's a lot of stories there that I also love to see.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, I think the main character in um, the Norse mythology books is Annabeth's cousin. There is a direct relation there to the original trio in the Viking one, in that Norse mythology, which I think is super cool. And it might be kind of cool to see some of these mythologies kind of cross over if they ever got to that point, the same way that they did with the Greek and Roman. Um, and the potential's there too. Like that's not something where you're building to right now, but then later on down the line, you want to bring these characters back. You want to bring Walker back because it's been 10 years and now he can interact with these younger characters in a way and kind of teach them and lead them, um, you have that ability to kind of, then it's another callback and you're bringing back the people who started it all off. And I think that's kind of cool. There is also the sequel series that he's been writing about Apollo.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's just a very expandable universe.
yeah,
At the end of the
100%.
day, there's so many things you can dive into. Again, like just blanking right now, like Harry Potter. The way that
Yeah.
not everything for Harry Potter was written up when these first movies started coming out. But now you see how much they expand their world. And I think it has that ability because there's so many great characters that you could do spin-offs for. Again, he has the other mythos that you can tie in. There's so many books that you can base off of already. So I think there's a lot of stories that can be told. There's a lot of stories that have already been told and can be retold. So I just think there's an avenue there. And I mean, obviously this depends on how successful it is. I don't see how it couldn't be successful. as long as it's not garbage. Like I think
As
even if
long
this
as it
show,
stays true to just the book, stay true to the characters, and hit the major beats. We're not looking for a one-to-one recreation, but Harry Potter wasn't, but it was still a phenomenal film series, and look at how big it is now. uh I think you also have the ability with a younger cast to see the same thing, watching them age and grow up, like we did with Harry Potter. But the same thing that we do on with an episodic series now, like Stranger Things, we've seen these kids grow up. What happens in 5-10 years from now when Percy Jackson finally comes to an end, and all of these characters are grown. You're like, whoa, where did the time go?
yeah, I mean, they did. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember exactly how old Walker is.
He's young.
He's very young. It's actually like accurate. It's not like when they cast somebody kind of young to play somebody super young. He's pretty accurate for the
Yeah,
age that he's depicting right now. So if it's a season a year,
he's 13.
and what I think he's playing 12,
Yeah, it's perfect. It's
11. Yeah.
perfect
So
casting.
I mean, if you're doing a season a year, that kid won't even be able to drink until 8 seasons in.
I
Like
mean, yeah. So he's not hanging out with fucking Dionysus at all.
So I just, again, I'm very excited for it. I just it gets me nervous though. It's the same reason that I just said, when something from your childhood gets re-brought up, can they ruin it? Will
Yeah,
they ruin it?
possibly.
They could. They
Yeah,
really
it's
could.
real. It's real and it's scary. But I think it's in good hands, and I think we're gonna get a faithful, truthful adaptation. And I'm so excited because, again, like you said, it was a big part of us, like growing up reading those books. um and I love, absolutely love, Greek mythology, and I think it's seen a huge resurgence as of late. So yeah, the fan base is going to be there for it.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this, I think, about a week ago. Um, what is it about Greek mythology that is just so appealing? And
These stories are still relevant.
we couldn't exactly put a finger on it. It was just like, there is the writing just that good? Because I mean, you think back, there's so many other mythos, and while none of them have died out, and all of them have their kind of fan bases, but you're just not gonna go up to somebody and talk about another mythos where they almost anybody will know at least something about it.
I mean, I don't know if it's the human nature, the human aspects to the god that they have. You know, there's so much of, like, in mythology, of things the gods did that people do. You know, they weren't these, like, foreign, other. I mean, they were otherworldly, but they weren't, you know, above us in the sense of, how many times did, even in Percy Jackson, they're having kids. They have so many kids. Zeus is
Yeah,
married. Zeus is married. He has a wife, and he has all of these other children.
yeah,
Um,
and he's supposed to be banned from having kids.
they all are.
The big
They
three are
all are,
banned from having kids, and they still
and they
do.
all still have kids, right? So, but how human is that, right? You know what I mean? It's awful as it is,
Yeah,
but that's the reality of it. And I don't know, maybe that's part of what makes Greek mythology such a real thing for people. I mean, yeah, when you can relate to a character, like, just, you're gonna keep telling that story forever, right?
yeah. I mean, the impact it's had is crazy, and it it's weird to me because when you think about it, Greek had a Greece itself had a giant impact, especially when it came to arts and culture. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, you see all of those inspirations went down to Shakespeare, and then these stories are still being told and retold till this day.
yeah.
And you wonder why that is, and you can't say anything other than that maybe they're that smart, because Greek didn't have a super expansive empire. Not even close. I mean, if you want to talk about someone closely, then why don't people know the Roman gods? Much bigger empire, very closely related, like almost word for word retellings of the Greeks mythos. So then, like, why aren't they the most popular? And it's just, I couldn't tell you other than that, just the Greeks were that good. And just that's why it's still stuck. So we have series like Percy Jackson. We have games like God of War. It's just,
Yeah. I mean, and even like you look at stories that are like retold and like are just retellings, like the story of Hades and Persephone. That story itself has so many retellings where, yeah, they're not called Hades, they're not called Persephone, but that's the story, right?
mm,
That's the setting, or they change the setting, they change the time period of it, they put it in a different country, in a different place, and but at its core, it's the story of them, and you get that with so many Greek stories. Uh, it's relatable. That's part of the reason why like Shakespeare is timeless, right? Because even
mm.
today we can still relate to these stories that are that old, and the Greek stories are even older. There's a reason we still teach the Odyssey and the Iliad in school, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just weird. Ever since we had that conversation, I have thought, I was like, what is there any other mythos even close to what the Greek mythos has gotten to?
I mean, and you could talk about like, oh well, Thor's super popular because of Marvel, but Thor in the Marvel universe is
It's
nowhere
not
near
it's not
Thor in
Thor,
mythology. No, it's not.
which is also cool about the Percy Jackson series as well. Since you're mentioning, God of Thunder, Thor, and having all the Norse mythology weaving throughout Marvel. Um, what's cool about the Percy Jackson series is the stories that they tell and some of the accuracy that they have. In school, if we were learning about Greek mythology, which I believe was probably about, I think, eighth grade, ancient civilization, shit like that. Um,
Sounds right.
I knew there was a lot of things that I came in already knowing, uh, because there's accuracy in there and there's research and there's things that are put in there. So it's not like Thor from Marvel when you're talking about Percy Jackson,
Yeah, if you
because
go
there's
into a class with your knowledge of Thor being the Marvel comics, you know nothing about Norse mythology.
exactly. However, I don't think that's completely true for Percy Jackson. I think they, incorporate the stories. I think they encapsulate. I mean, obviously, it's much more childlike and dulled down, but they encapsulate a
Yeah, and
lot of
it's
the
a modern day
characters.
setting, but
Yeah, but the personalities of those gods are very present. I mean, just the god complex on Zeus, and just the amount of just douchery that goes through the all three of the big three's heads.
yep.
Um,
Well, and it's the same thing with like you get that extra knowledge of Greek mythology when you play God of War, which you shouldn't have been playing at that time. That's
I wonder
uh
whose fault that was. Anyway,
it's trying to teach you something. Um you God of War, yeah, it's an original story, and Kratos changes a lot of you know what happens in Greece. But at the core of it, Zeus is still Zeus. All of those gods are still who they are, and you get a lot of going through Athens and all these different cities, and different monsters, and even the more minor gods that you don't normally talk about. Everybody talks about the big three. Everybody talks about the Olympians, but you get the Fates, the Furies, all of these other uh, parts of the mythology. Even in Percy Jackson, um, Typhon, when he
yeah,
comes and it's just a giant cloud, and it's like nobody really knows about who Typhon is from mythology, but like he's the father of all monsters in Greek mythology, and that's a awesome like minor character from mythology that they're using, and it's done well.
yeah, and I know when we get, I mean, because there's so much that goes into these books. Because then I can go into each one. I mean, you get into the labyrinth. Uh, you get into
Yeah.
the book with the labyrinth. That's a very elaborate story. That's very real. Different characters, modern day setting. Labyrinth was the real thing from the story. They do a great job of putting them through that. And then again, you get the Titans.
Yep.
Titan storyline, and I believe, trying to remember, I don't remember if they did this at the end of the Percy Jackson books or when they got into the Roman collaboration, when they bring in Gaia, the Earth Mother, and all of that as well, which is even deeper into that mythos, back into
Yeah.
like the beginning of it all. So um, that definitely interesting, and I again, I want to see them go that deep into it. I want to see them go all the way through those books and hopefully give me even more.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with them even expanding and introducing even more gods and other, characters from mythology. Like, bring them all in. Bring as many as you like. This is the world we inhabit, and it's interesting too seeing those characters in like a modern day setting instead of
Mhm.
like we're not going back and like, oh, this is Troy, where yeah, the gods are there, but it's ancient. It's still ancient times, whatever. It's New York City,
Yeah,
um, you know, and then so they're not walking around in toga. So I'm super excited for it. I'm like tempted to pull out the books and reread them all now
I still
in
have all of them.
preparation.
I still have all of them sitting in the back of this room.
You're a luckier man than me.
I actually think I still have the Roman ones as well, to be honest.
I'm really tempted to just like in preparation, but that might also make my judgment harsher when I watch the first season if I've read it so
Yeah,
recently.
yeah, no, probably. It that definitely does have an effect. Um,
Like,
trying to
this
think.
isn't real. This didn't happen that way. It's like, what do you mean? I read it yesterday.
Who's the character that you're most excited to see adapted on screen properly, hopefully properly?
Honestly, a character I really, really want to see um, is Nico.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good one. I think I really want to see Luke adapted well. Uh, because again, such an interesting character, and obviously, main antagonist for the first book, and I think it'd be really cool to see him done really well, especially because you're gonna get a young kid playing somebody that has a lot of like anger and deception and all of this stuff.
It's such a
Um,
deep character too.
yeah, yeah. I'd so
And like
again,
where all that stems from and like the manipulation of
yeah. So
that.
I think he would be a hard character to pull off, but I think he would be the coolest to see pulled off well.
Hmm.
Um,
I think for me with Nico too, it's like he's such an interesting character being the son of Hades. Um, like you get this dark aura about him and everything, and he's super young, and
yeah,
has no problem telling everybody off and everything. Um, but it just outright interesting, and I like just the interactions between all of them. I can't wait to see them actually like all on screen and um, you know, in the camp arguing with each other, and it's just it's gonna be such a fun show.
yeah. Gonna be really fun to watch. I think also a cool one. I don't remember if I have his name right, but Percy's brother, Tyson, was it?
I'm gonna confirm for you.
Please do. But his brother, the Cyclops.
Yes. Yeah, Tyson.
Yeah, I think that'll be a cool one. One, I want to see how that CGI is going to interact because obviously he's a giant Cyclops. So again, that's
The
going to be a testament
CGI is
to
the
the
one thing
CGI.
I'm worried about.
That CGI is really going to come into play there.
It's the one thing
Also,
I'm worried about.
another thing, fight choreography.
Yeah.
These are battle trained and battle ready kids, which isn't something you see too often. So I really want to see what direction they're going to go for the fight choreography and see how that actually all pans out.
Yeah. Yeah, that is going to be interesting. I wonder who they're bringing on to choreograph um, some of this.
I don't know, nor do I think they've said.
No, I don't think so. I'm gonna have to look into it and see who's actually what stunt teams are being brought in and stuff. Because you're right, the fight choreography is going to be
Yeah, I
important.
mean, you have again kids that are trained to fight, like especially like Annabeth, who's a trained fighter and leader
Yeah,
for them, and so getting some of that fight choreography, I think, is going to be difficult, especially with them being so young in this first season. Uh, yeah, I just hope it doesn't come out cheesy, because you are talking about little kids fighting.
I do think this show is going to have a certain level of campiness to it, and I'm
No,
okay with that.
I'm okay with campy. I just don't want some of the things that I want to be taken seriously to look cheesy because it's an adaptation of what it was originally a kid's book. Uh, so
Yeah.
I want a decent amount of substance and realism, or not realism because they're not kids that are fucking Trojan warriors. But like,
No, but
so
there is a certain there is a level of realness in the fact like they are kids and they're saving the world and they're fighting and like their lives are in danger. Like even the fact that they're demigods, even like Percy being the son of Poseidon, like it doesn't put him in any less danger when he's fighting literal monsters or other gods and like titans. Like the danger is just as real because he's going up against something that's just as powerful as him and his parents, and the rest of his family. So
yeah,
there is a certain level of realism there, and that might be something to like really touch on. Like, um, like you're just kids. You're still just kids.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting again because I don't even want to doubt it because we've had a really big, you know, a lot of good child actors have come out recently.
Yeah.
Most notably, we've talked about like the cast from It, the cast of Stranger Things. But I mean, this is also one of the cast members from Stranger Things, but they're like in everything now. But from Ghostbusters,
Oh
um,
yeah.
we've just been getting a lot of really good child actors. And also, I'm watching like Cobra Kai right now. Newest season just came out. If you guys don't watch Cobra Kai, you should. It's amazing.
Well, and
But
even
then
yeah,
child actors in that as well.
I
Just
can't
a
wait to
lot of them are great.
see the Avatar: The Last Airbender live action that we're getting. The actor who's playing Aang is super young. Um, but and I think, but that's good. It's accurate,
Yeah,
and
that's what it's supposed to be.
yeah,
That
and
is
so
what
I
it's supposed
can't
to be.
wait to see. This teaser has me excited, and with just the news and the castings, like even for something like Avatar, um, these are both two like even both of those are probably my most anticipated adaptations that are coming out.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
why they're so anticipated? Because they got fucked up the first time.
that's the key. That's the
That's what it
key, and
is.
that's the realness. That's the real threat, and that's the real villain of the story is the
Yeah,
bad movies that
you have to
these two projects got
you have to mess up once to get people real excited.
to get rid. You have to have really just fucked up royally to get me this hype about a project that has no trailer.
Have no trailer. All we have is a couple castings.
I have
That's
some
it.
castings.
That's
That's
it.
it. Yeah. So I'm excited. I can't wait for it to finally come out, which I don't think it has a release date yet.
No, not true. Not. I
I
don't
think it has
know.
a release window,
Release
but
window, but those aren't accurate
no,
typically. those
things
those
can
aren't
always
accurate.
change and shift. Yeah.
Uh, but I do think that is all we have on Percy Jackson right now. You guys just heard us rambling on about basically how much we love this book series and how much we're excited about this uh, new project. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of the Beer and Skittles Depths of Pop Culture podcast. And we will see you guys next episode.